Yo, what's going on, guys? It's J Mass, and I'm coming at you with a little bit of a different introduction to this video than what I normally do. So, about 2 months ago, back in March, I filmed a video in the Sutton Motor-In, which is one of my absolute favorite abandoned locations, located in Sutton, Massachusetts. And right now it's May, and unfortunately, as of this month, there have been some pretty negative developments. So back on May 2nd, there was a huge brush fire that occurred at the Sutton Motor-In. And unfortunately, because of that fire, a lot of stuff got burned down, including the iconic movie theater screen that was there. That was like the highlight of the location. And I believe a lot of vegetation, plants, and even a couple of the other buildings got damaged from the fire. So pretty sad to see what happened, especially considering that the Sutton Motor-In was one of my favorite abandoned locations to visit. I'd gone like 3 times in the past. So I'm making this video just to let you guys know that the Sutton Motor-In you're going to see in this upcoming video is not in the same capacity as it is right now anymore because of the fire. So originally I wasn't sure about posting this. This was going to be my very first video on the channel, but I wasn't like too crazy about it. I kind of wanted to tweak it a bit. But then of course the fire happened, and now I realize like I have this rare footage of the Sutton Motor-In before the fire, like 2 months before. So obviously I want to post it now. But it's just pretty sad to hear what happened. As someone who's really into urban exploration, just seeing a really cool site like this, which opened up in 1947 and closed in the 90s, just this piece of history just get destroyed. It's really sad. So anyways, enjoy the upcoming video. Just know that I wasn't sure about posting it, but ever since the brush fire, I definitely want to now. So it might seem a little weird or out of character, but this is the Sutton Motor-In. Again, one of my favorite abandoned locations. And if you ever plan on going to see it, I'm sorry. It's not going to be as good as it used to be because of the fire. Anyways, enjoy, and long live the Sutton Motor-In. You know, I'm sure that a lot of people from my generation probably aren't too familiar with drive-in movie theaters. I actually only have one real experience with a drive-in movie theater that I can remember. It was 2009, and I was like 10 years old. And I went to a drive-in movie theater somewhere in southern New Hampshire with my grandparents. We saw the movie Ice Age 3, Dawn of the Dinosaurs, because I was a big Ice Age fan at the time. But even in 2009, drive-in movie theaters were a severely dwindling industry. There just really weren't that many of them, and there wasn't much demand for them. But the same can't be said for the mid-20th century, when drive-in movie theaters were at their height. I'm actually standing at a site right now located in Sutton, Massachusetts, called the Sutton Motor-In. Now this opened up in 1947 and had a pretty successful few decades until it closed in 1996. Now there's a lot of history of this site, and as you can see behind me, the main centerpiece is this giant abandoned movie screen where films were projected onto it. Now I'm going to take you with me as we explore the Sutton Motor-In. This is probably one of my favorite abandoned locations I've ever been to, and this is my 3rd time coming here. So follow me as I teach you about the history, show you all the cool sites, and check out all the abandoned locations of the Sutton Motor-In, one of America's last standing drive-in movie theaters. Now, as you can see here, this massive plot of asphalt used to be the parking lot where cars would come to the Sutton Motor-In to view the films on display, all directly pointed at the movie screen in front of us. And right here's the projectionist building. Also the snack shack on the other side, bathrooms, all that stuff. We're gonna actually go take a look inside here. And as you can see, it's been pretty dilapidated over time. For a place that was closed down in 1996, lots of people have gone to this before I have. Got a bunch of tires up there, some rotting wood. I mean, graffiti everywhere. You can tell that there's a lot of wear and tear at this place. Now, if you take a look in here, if I had to guess, this was probably the storage closet where they kept utensils and all that stuff. There's cup lids and straws everywhere on the floor. Probably at one point holding all the cups and straws they used. Now this here is probably one of the most destroyed rooms in the entire building. This used to be the bathroom, and you can see all the stalls absolutely destroyed. You can even see the porcelain from the toilets and sinks. Completely ruined. It's crazy. It's one of the paper towel dispensers. And you can see the roof is absolutely dilapidated. Of course, one pretty cool thing about this building is all the graffiti on it. I saw this toucan here. I thought that was pretty cool. But now we're going to take a look in here, which is probably one of my favorite rooms in the entire building. This, of course, being the snack shack. Now, this is where you'd come to get all of your drinks, food, all that stuff. They probably sold some really good popcorn here at some point. Now, this is the building where you'd stand in line and be served here. That was most likely the kitchen. They probably had popcorn and soda dispensers. But now it's just a husk of its former self, completely destroyed. And it's crazy to see how much graffiti there is. Now this here is actually pretty cool. If you notice these square holes in the wall, these are actually where the projectors pointed out. And if you turn around, they faced right to point at the giant screen, obviously obscured by trees now. But back in the day, the projectors would point out of here, pointed at the screen, and project the films onto them. And you can actually take a look in this room over here, which is the projectionist room. Now, I believe they used 35mm projections back in the day. I can't be too sure, but I believe it was 35mm projections. Or film, I should say. And right here is where the projections would go through. At one point in time, pointed directly at the film screen. Now obscured by trees. Once again, very, very dilapidated room. But it's cool to think that at one point in time, before 1996, there were people actively working in here, switching through films, you know, projecting them out the screen above. All right, this I got to show you guys because this is really weird. So obviously this is the front of the snack shack part of the building. But if you go over here, I found an old abandoned laptop. Really fucking weird. I don't know what someone was doing with this. I mean, it doesn't look that old, I guess, but that's some of the weird stuff you can find at these abandoned locations. You can find some really weird shit. Unfortunately, I couldn't find many old artifacts because I'm sure most of them were taken over time, but hey, pretty cool though. So now that we've taken a look at the interior of this building, from the snack shack to the bathrooms to the projectionist room, there's two more spots that we want to check out. Now, if you take a look right here, this used to be the former ticket booth. This is where cars would drive in and out. And when they came in, they would buy their tickets for the movie they were going to see that night. Obviously, there's not too much to see here now. It's pretty small, pretty dilapidated, but still pretty cool. You can almost imagine the very last year this was in operation in 1996. You would have someone sitting in here. As cars pulled in from the highway over there, they would drive over, drive up to here, give the money, and the guy would give the ticket. And that's what they would drive all the way up to the parking lot, where the screen is. Pretty simple system, but pretty cool to see. And I just really love the triangular architecture of this building. It's just, I don't know, kind of unique. Now this, of course, is the main marquee, the Archway, or the entrance to the Sutton Motor-In. Now once we get to the front here, you'll see that this is where the movie titles were on display for passerbys. And obviously, as you see over here, this is the highway where cars will drive by and most likely come down to this driveway here. And you can actually go inside these little archways. There's not too much to see, but still pretty cool. Obviously, lots of overgrowth of vegetation. Check out this one over here. Now you can actually climb all the way up there, which I'm not gonna do because that's super dangerous. But I will admit, the very first time I came here, which was I think 2018, I actually did climb up there because it wasn't this bad. And you can actually go all the way up into the arch. Again, I mean, look at how fucking dilapidated this is. Super dangerous, not a good idea. Probably lots of rusty nails. But if you're a thrill seeker, something you can do. And of course, with the highway right next to me, the entrance to the Sutton Motor-In. Pretty cool to see. And you could probably tell by the way this looks. This is where movie titles used to be on display. And right over there, the ticket booth that we were just at earlier. And the giant screen behind that. Actually a pretty cool layout for the Sutton Motor-In. So now that we've toured around the Sutton Motor-In and seen the snack shack, the ticket booth, the entrance, now we can take a stop at the centerpiece of the entire place, the giant film screen directly behind me. Now to give you a little insight on why the Sutton Motor-In even closed in the first place, it might actually surprise you, because it wasn't necessarily the decline of drive-in movie theaters. As I said earlier, I mean, I remember going to a drive-in movie theater as recently as 2009. The real reason that the Sutton Motor-In actually closed was because of the content they were playing. While yes, they would play, you know, children's films or regular Hollywood blockbusters, they were also notorious for putting on X-rated films, adult films. Basically what I'm saying is they used to play pornography. Now, the town of Sutton was really not a fan of this, and they eventually issued a closure on the Sutton Motor-In. And in 1996, they officially closed down, after many decades of operation. But despite that history, still really cool that this place even exists to this day. It hasn't been demolished, as you can see. Sure, it's in a really bad state of disrepair, but nonetheless, a living artifact of its time. Now, it might not have necessarily looked that way when I was standing in front of it earlier, but this thing is absolutely massive. And you can get a better glimpse of that once you get up to it. Right now, we're on the right side of the screen. And as you can see, it's pretty tall. And at the base of it, a lot more dilapidated. Lots of graffiti, you know, lots of decaying wood. But still a pretty cool sight. All right, now here we are. The inside of the Sutton Motor-In screen. And I just gotta tell you, this is really cool to see in person. So one thing I'll say is you can actually access the very top of this. Again, I'm not gonna do that because while I'm not necessarily afraid of heights, I don't trust the structural integrity of this building. But again, you can do that. You can access the top of that. And apparently you can get some really good views up there. I would not recommend that though. But even just being in the base of this place, really, really cool. And you can see, like, there's really not that many beams holding it down. Like, for such a massive and tall building, there's only a couple structural beams holding it in place. But it's really cool to say that, you know, this has survived since the late 90s. Obviously, there's trash everywhere because so many people have been to this place. Right now, we're on the left side of the screen. All of the paneling has just come off. It's crazy. All right, now if you thought the front of the giant screen was in bad condition, the back is even worse. Lots of paneling has come off, and that arch up there kind of freaks me out. I think that thing's gonna collapse at some point soon. But this is the very back of the screen, obviously rotting away with time. And that was the Sutton Motor-In, located in Sutton, Massachusetts, right off the Worcester-Providence Turnpike. Again, one of my favorite abandoned places I've ever been, and I've been to a lot of abandoned places, so that's saying something, just for how unique and interesting this place is. I mean, getting to see an abandoned drive-in movie theater, almost nearly untouched since how it looked in the 90s, really cool to see, because there really aren't many of these left in the US. So I would definitely recommend checking this place out if you live in New England or if you're going to be in the area. Again, very cool, not so obscure abandoned location, but definitely one I'd recommend checking out. I just wouldn't recommend going up into the screen or in the marquee. Pretty sketchy stuff. But this is my very first abandoned exploration video. I plan on doing more of these in the future, as well as more history and geography and New England related stuff. So keep an eye out on my channel. I'm hoping to have more shit out. This is Jacob, aka JMass, and I'll catch you later, guys.